Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Alive and Sometimes Well podcast, a trauma informed, business ish podcast for folks who see life as art and on all things business, relationships, mental health, light and breezy shit, the good stuff. I'm Alyssa. I'm a licensed therapist, a certified coach, and I am a space holder for space holders, coaches, therapists, creatives, entrepreneurs, and magic makers.
Wow, what an intro that is.
It's a little bit of a mouthful, maybe like too much.
I mean, I think it's wonderful. It's hard to follow up. Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Turner. I am a trauma-informed business coach for Misfits, Artists, and Creatives.
And this is our first episode. And I was so nervous and excited before that I had explosive diarrhea. So,
I mean, how could you not? I'm sweating. I'm like sweating, but I still put my sweater on for safety.
a comfort sweater.
A safety sweater. Yes, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. So because this is our first episode, we'll kind of break down how our episodes are going to work. We'll always open up with highs and lows. So this is something that I used to do. So I used to work as a grief therapist for a nonprofit. And when I would do groups, especially with like kids, teens, young adults, we would always start our grief group session with highs and lows, except we called them roses and thorns. And Rachel and I are going to call them our highs and lows. We're both like very big visionaries. So we have high highs and low lows, and we're going to share them with you every week. Then we'll get into the topic. So this week is we're really exploring that feeling of wanting to blow up your own life. Maybe when things are going well or not. And then we'll get into that. And at the end, we will always answer questions that y'all submit, and we'll ask for those every week. So that's kind of the way the podcast is going to flow.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Okay. Me too. So, okay. First, highs and lows. Rachel, tell me everything.
Okay. So I'm going to go with a low first.
Yeah.
So,
love that.
I have bipolar 2, and I was diagnosed in March or April, and it has just been like the biggest roller coaster of my life to figure out my medication. And it is like some days I wake up and I feel like myself. I'm like, there she is, like we're thriving, it's amazing. And some days I wake up and I'm so exhausted that like I'll be exhausted at like 9 a.m. So like I'll wake up, I'll feel like myself for an hour, and then it gets to 9 a.m. and I'm like, how am I going to make it through this day? And I'll ask Sarah, my wife, like, do you think I can make it through the day? And it just makes me so sad. And so I think that is my low, like just like this like ever going process of figuring out like medication and like navigating each day and like feeling like an embodied human and not just like a body like floating around. You know what I mean?
Yes. Like that feeling of not feeling tethered, and you're just like trying to get through this situation because it doesn't feel like there's an easy answer.
Yeah. So that's my low, but my high is this podcast. I'm like, we've been so excited for this podcast. Like this podcast and the cover art for this podcast. Like, oh my gosh. So like the cover art for this podcast, when we decided we were going to make this podcast, I was like, we were so excited. And I immediately went into like, what is the cover art going to look like?
The most important thing, of course.
I just like, it felt so important to me. So like in like a super frantic state, I didn't even tell Alyssa I was doing this.
No.
We had tried so hard on Canva to create our own cover art, and Alyssa made like 20 different versions.
That's my process.
Yes. And they were all like, you did such a wonderful job. Like I tried, it did not go well.
We tried our best.
We did try our best. And then I went on Upwork and I frantically was searching for people I could hire immediately. And I hired this person and I said, I need this by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. And it was like 7 p.m. at night.
And so everyone was stressed.
Yeah. So, only then did I tell Alyssa what I had done. And the artwork was exactly what you would expect it to be for going on Upwork and making a request to have something done in like 14 hours. So like that was understandable.
Yeah.
But then we reached out to Allie at With Wonderly, and she created this beautiful cover art. And I felt like when I saw it, like, yes, that is like, that's it. Our podcast is complete. We can begin. We can carry on.
Yep. I love it. It. You stole my high too, I think. I'm going to rethink some of these.
Okay. You have time.
Okay, I love it. And I love that you talk about medication because I think, and this is like with my background of working as a therapist, is like the part that a lot of people don't talk about when you are searching for medication. Like it sometimes just takes time and trial and error, but the
Mhm.
error is fucking painful. Like all the weeks and sometimes months of trying to figure out and mix and match, like, okay, this helps with these symptoms, but it's actually causing me these other problems that I wasn't having before. Like that shit is so frustrating. And when you're already dealing with mental health stuff, and then you're trying to figure out medication that's supposed to be helping that, and it's making it temporarily worse. Like
Yeah.
that's just hard. And it is a reality. Like it is it's less of the norm that you just immediately find the right medication combination. You're like, boom, and you start feeling better. Like that's just not how it works. Sometimes it just takes time.
No, no, I wish it was. Well, I was telling Sarah the other day that like I've never felt worse. Like I felt better when
Mhm.
I was off my medication
Yeah.
than I do on my medication.
Yep.
And I get why people are like, I'm gonna be done with this. Like,
Right.
why? Like, I don't want to keep taking my medication anymore. Like, I
Yeah.
totally understand. Like, just like the process. It's been like months, and it still doesn't feel like there's any like. Even when you do get a moment of like, I feel better. Like, it's like, how long is it gonna last? And I
Right.
hate like that makes me just want to be done with life. Like that feeling of like, is it going to last? Do I have an hour? Do I have 20 minutes? Do I have a day? Like,
Yeah.
it's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really hard. I've been there as well at different points in my life. So I really appreciate you talking about that because I think that that's
Yeah,
part
of
of the
course.
medication conversation that sometimes gets left out.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So my high for the week is that it was my husband's birthday, and I flew his dad in. Like we planned to surprise him. He hadn't seen his dad in 14 months, and that's the longest in his entire life that he's gone without seeing his dad. And he's in residency, so his schedule is just like non non-human. Like it shouldn't be what it is. So for his birthday, we like didn't know what days he'd have off, but when I finally figured out, it was like a scramble. But I got his dad down here and surprised him, and it was just like the most beautiful thing. And I think my favorite part about it was watching two grown men like be emotionally tender, soft, and
Yeah.
vulnerable with each other. Like, and not be ashamed of it. Like I recorded on my phone, and his dad took the video and made a YouTube video to send it out to the
Oh
entire
my
family so that
God.
everyone could experience it. So it wasn't like I captured this on video. They saw it. They saw how emotional they got and were like, okay, don't show anybody that. They were just
Mm.
like, yeah, of course. And like, send it, like, we're going to send it to the family so everyone gets to be a part of it. And it was just like, it was so beautiful. And it really made me think about how little bandwidth we give like boys, teenage boys, men to like be emotionally tender and vulnerable, and how much that's needed because everybody's a human who has a full range of
Yeah.
feelings. So that was so beautiful to witness. And his dad is just like a gem of a human. And so I got to actually spend like 2 days, just me and his dad, because Chris was working. And we spent so much time together. Like at first, I was like, I had never spent that much time alone with him. I was like, what are we going to do? I have to have activities. But we really like just chatted about life for 2 days. And that was so nice. I
That's so
loved it.
special.
So that was my high.
I
And
love
my
that.
low would be I think just like realizing how much more work I have to do around navigating in between spaces. So like we moved into our house a few weeks ago, and I know cognitively that like things take time to come together, but there's a
Mhm.
very real part of me that wants everything perfect yesterday.
Yeah.
And like every day I wake up and realize like I don't have all the furniture I want. Everything is not in its place. This is going to take months.
Yes.
I'm like, I hate it. It makes me feel like I can't do anything. I'm like, well, I can't work because my space is not perfect. I
Oh
don't
my
have a
God.
desk yet. I don't have my bookshelf. All
Yeah.
my books are not up. My artwork's not up. I'm like, I can't do anything.
I
I
feel that
hate
so
that.
hard.
I hate that. I wish that I could just like be like nomadic and be like, I can like do stuff anywhere. It's no problem. And I want that, but that's not me. And I don't know if that will ever be me. So I think the low is realizing that this might be how I am forever.
Oh my God. I feel that like in a way that I didn't want to feel it. I don't want
I
to feel that
know.
sweet because I
I'm
relate so
sorry.
hard.
I'm
It's okay.
sorry. Like I'm flexible in certain ways, and I've grown in my
Right.
flexibility. Like a year ago when we moved to Houston from North Carolina, I made our apartment be set up in 3 days and I exhausted everyone. Everyone was sick of me. I was sick of my shit. So we moved into the house. I was like, I'm not going to do that. But here we are 2.5 weeks in. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, I know I said this could take 6 months, but like, I don't think I can do it. I'm going to throw up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we just moved too, and that feeling of like I feel like on a regular basis, like we have this hideous desk in our
And you
bedroom
hate
that
it.
I
It ruins your day, right? Like you see
Sarah,
it.
it's so like I'm like I can't sleep in here, like I can't get dressed in here, like I can't do anything in here because this ugly desk is in my room.
Like this desk is ruining my vibe. I don't even want to look at this.
No, it's like Sarah took it from her mom. She thought it would be a good idea, but it has total like 80s mom vibes, and it's
Yeah,
just like it's not right for us. I
I
get
get
it. I
it.
totally understand.
It's important. Space is important. Some people it's not, but it is
Yes.
to me.
Yes. You know what? You know what I like is that I feel like I don't know if that's a visionary thing or what it
Hmm.
is, but like
Hmm.
I felt the same way, like the way that you're describing is exactly the way we felt about like the cover art. That's like a
Yes,
thing.
for our podcast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
until we found the perfect thing, it was almost like this cover art could make us suck on the podcast, which like I know cognitively is not true, but like maybe a little bit.
Yeah. It
Like if
could
we
it
had the shittier cover art, we might be having, I mean, who knows what could happen? It'd be
I'm
really
glad that we
bad.
don't have to experience that.
Me too. I'm glad as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Highs
right.
and lows. I love that went everywhere and I'm really into that.
Me too. Me too.
Okay. So like let's get into this week. And
Yeah.
thanks to everyone who submitted questions. We'll get to some at the end. And what we're really exploring this week is that feeling of wanting to blow up your own life.
Mhm.
Like burn shit to the ground, maybe when things are going well, or especially then, or just maybe in general, that feeling, that sensation, that desire just like crashes into you where you're like, look around and you're like, you know what if I just burned it to the ground and started over? What if I just ran away from my life? And
Mhm.
this was really inspired by watching the Netflix show Sex Life. Have y'all seen it? So I didn't even know it was on Netflix because I was in like the whole process of moving. And Rachel, you actually texted me and you were like, Alyssa, have you watched the show? And I was like, wait, what is this? I looked it up and was like, no, but this is going to be my life for the next 2 days. And I watched it in two
Yes.
days. So I am
Yes.
going to ask you the most therapist question of all
Mhm.
time. Rachel, how did
Yes.
it make you feel to watch the show Sex Life?
I love this question. Well, first let me break down Sex Life really quick for those who haven't seen it.
Yeah, please.
It's a show. The main character was actually Carmen from The L Word. Don't know if you've seen The L Word. Highly recommend.
Highly
Um,
recommend.
yeah. But so Carmen from The L Word is the main character, and she's married to this guy named Cooper, and they have two kids. They have this like beautiful life in Connecticut. He's a wonderful husband. He's loving, he's patient,
Mhm.
he's kind. He's like all of these things, but she is feeling unsettled and she starts writing about her ex-boyfriend, Brad. And she writes about these like deeply intimate, like intense sex, just like her past life, which was like wild and free. And she was like her fullest expression of herself. So
Mhm.
she's like writing about this in her diary. And we keep getting flashbacks of like her like running into New York City and like what her life is and all of these things. And so it becomes this narrative of her continuing to write about her ex-boyfriend in her diary, and then her husband like is reading the diary, which
Mhm.
like fucked up on so many levels.
First of all, that's private. He shouldn't be doing
Right.
that. No,
No.
hated that.
No, that was terrible. So then it becomes like him wanting to like perform this like idea of who he thinks she wants, and her being conflicted with like this past life because now the boyfriend, he then actually like comes back into her life.
Mhm.
So how did it make me feel? I I knew before I watched it, like I knew in seeing the trailer that I was gonna be like not well because my pattern in life is to like burn it down, and
Yeah.
not so much in like recent years and like small fires. I have like small fires everywhere for sure.
Love that. That's
Yeah,
true.
but like in my past is just like a bunch of flames. Like it is like the bridges are down, like I've take knocked them down, like I'm like a fire like waiting to just like burst out into a whole explosion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew like watching it, well, there's like watching it for that and like watching it like about my sexuality too, which like has been like in big question just like in general. Like I've been
Mhm.
exploring that too. So I was like
Mhm.
in just like a very like confused state to like begin
Yeah.
with. Like we were on episode 1 and I was already a little bit confused. Um, but I did like it made me feel like, should I be married?
Yeah.
Like, did I make a mistake? Like,
Yeah.
I wanna go like what life I had my son when I was really young, when I was 18. And so I could just kept thinking about like what life could I have had? And I
Yeah.
just kept thinking about it over and over again. And what's interesting is like the main star of the show is dating, so like she's dating the ex-boyfriend in real life. And she also left a 10-year marriage to like date the Brad, the main character of the show.
Wait, I did not know. That's why their chemistry was like that.
Yeah.
Oh shit. No wonder they had chemistry. Like, cause I was like, damn, like they are really great actors. I didn't even think like, could they really be fucking in real life?
Oh, they definitely are. They definitely
that
are.
that okay, if you have not seen the show, like the chemistry between them is just it's palpable. And I think that might be part of the reason why it like fucked us up watching it because it didn't feel manufactured. It felt too real in moments.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
just kept like, and I love my wife. I don't want my marriage to be over. Like there
Yeah.
is such a steady like core of like this is right. Like I
Mhm.
am here.
Yeah.
But like the part of me that used to look for like the emergency exit all the time was
Yeah.
like lighting up. Like I was like, what do I need to burn down? Like what should can I get a tattoo? Can I like burn something else down
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like meet this like need that I'm having? So that's how I felt when I was watching it. How did you feel?
You know what? I knew as soon as I watched the trailer too, I was like, should I even watch this right now? Because I'm in transition and I just moved into this house. Like, I just bought a fucking house to a person that I am married to. And it was like sending me on a spiral. Like, I am not good at change. I always buck against change. It's very uncomfortable for me. So I was like, okay, I'm in transition. Like, from a mental health perspective is now a good time to watch the show, and I was like, no, but my penchant for addictive behaviors and compulsive and impulsive
Absolutely.
behavior was like, we are going to watch this all as fast as possible, and that's what I did. And I knew I was going to spiral a little bit. I
Hmm.
totally did. And it's like I watched it and it made me think like I had a very chaotic time from like 16 to into my 20s, multiple relationships, sometimes happening at the same time,
Hmm.
unethically. So, like,
Yeah.
um, did a lot of shit. Some of it I'm not proud of, but like all a part of being young and figuring stuff out. And like I'm still figuring stuff out. We don't ever stop doing that. But
Yeah.
so I had a lot of like wild times, like really wild, especially in college. And I had some really like fiery connections and some toxicity and very addictive kind of relationships with people. And actually, Chris and I, when we first got together, our friends with benefits situation, because that's how we started, was extremely addictive. Like it fed that part of my brain.
Yeah.
And we had that kind of like, it was like codependent and toxic. And like I ate that shit up. So watching this was like, oh my God. Like
Mm-hmm.
it also made me think like, wait, like I've seen so many women in particular that like wake up in their 30s and 40s and it's like they've been asleep to their own lives and they're like, how did this happen to me? And that's
I
like my
know.
greatest fear. I never want to
Same.
wake up and be like, did I make my own prison without even
It's terrifying.
Yes. And I've seen so many people go through that. And so I'm trying to be really cognizant of always questioning things, always really being honest with myself about like how I feel and what I want. But yeah, that show for a minute, I was spiraling like, oh my God, my life, it looks so normal. Like I got married. I moved to a new city for my man because he has a job. We bought a house together, like, holy shit, holy shit. Like, how do I know that this is the right thing forever? And the truth is that we don't. And that makes people
I
so
know.
uncomfortable. Like we all want the security, but like
Hmm.
also if everything's so secure, it kind of also takes the mystery and the sexiness and excitement and passion
I
out of
know.
stuff.
I know. I know. This is what happens when two avoidant people make a podcast.
Oh, yes. Introduction. I tend to swing to an avoidant attachment style.
Yes, same.
So that is what's going to come through here. If you are more anxiously attached, you might be like, I don't understand what you two are talking about at
Yeah,
all. And that's totally fine because everybody's triggered in their own ways. When I get nervous, I want to run and hide to protect myself. And people that are maybe
absolutely.
more anxiously attached are going to want to like get closer to somebody to feel safe. So all of those things make sense.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think I felt the exact same way, like how I made the right choice. Like, did I make
Yeah.
the right choice? Like, well, I got married, like I'm in my, late 20s. Like, what am I doing? Like, what have I done? Like, this would be my second marriage. Like,
Yeah.
how many marriages will I have? Um, and it actually brought up a lot of hard conversations. Like, I actually didn't want Sarah to watch it. I watched it all like
Oh,
on my own
okay. Okay. Why?
because I almost felt like I think she knows me so well that I think that
She
if
would
she was
know.
watching it, she would know. And she is like, she told me last night, she was like, so I'm watching the show. And it wasn't just like, hey, like I'm watching Sex Life too. Like it felt different, you know?
Like she was looking at you, like I'm watching the show and like staring into your eyes, like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And I told her what this podcast is going to be about as well. Like she
Mhm.
knows that like this is the conversation that we're having. And
Yeah.
and I told her how I was feeling too. So it definitely brought up many conversations.
Yeah.
I think good healthy conversations. Like I'm glad that we were talking about like what we did. Like I'm glad, like I probably would turn into the main character if I wasn't having these conversations. Like
I love that you said that because the thing about it and what I've watched in myself when I was younger in particular is like the secrecy of things
mhm.
is what can get us into big trouble. It's like I shouldn't say this because I shouldn't feel this way, so I'm not going to tell anybody, and that actually makes it like 10 times worse, more tempting, more like problematic, like
Yeah.
it really can create a whole situation where and I'll talk about this more like when we kind of get into more details, but I always call my sister Kayla when I feel like I want to blow up my life. She is the person I call to say, hey, I'm feeling like I want to like burn my entire life to the ground, and we talk through it. And just being able to talk to her gives me so much relief versus carrying it around like a secret, feeling like I'm going to explode, and when I explode I'm going to like combust and take everything down with me.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like keeping it inside, and then it grows, and then it grows, and then it grows, and then it's like you have to act on it. I
Yeah,
mean, you
you're
don't
like,
have to act on it, but it feels like I need to act on this right now.
it does. It becomes this like really intense sense of urgency because you have literally held it inside. Now it is going to explode out of you. And I think a lot of people in committed partnerships do this where they're like, I can't say anything. I can't talk about this. And because it's going to ruin everything. And then what happens is
Yeah.
over the years, now there's all of these unspoken things said between two people. And there's this huge
Mm.
disconnect. And then trying to bridge that is really difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love having hard conversations. I
Me
think
too.
that like I wouldn't be married to Sarah if we couldn't have hard conversations because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is going to be the first time that like this feeling there's a show like this. There's going to be a season 2. What happens in season 2? Who does she pick?
Yeah, like what is going to happen? I mean,
Oh my God.
yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So good. So, I mean, can you think of like times in your life or a specific time in your life that you have had that sensation of like burn it all to the ground or I want to flee or run away or like blow up my life?
Yeah. So this must have been 6 or 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And about 6 years ago. And I was still building my business at the time.
Yeah.
And things were not well. Like I
Okay.
was being evicted from my apartment at the
Okay.
time. And I had started dating the first woman that I had ever dated. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, oh my God, like my whole world makes sense now. Like everything makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was like so infatuated and just like head over heels in love.
Yeah.
And I started getting this feeling that like I should move to New York. Like
Like the
I should
city.
the city because that's where she was. She was in New York.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, dads do this all the time. Dads get jobs other places and they're applauded for taking on a better job
Mm-hmm.
and for following their dreams or doing whatever, their
Yes.
thing is.
Yes.
Um so I was at this place where I was like being evicted and I just like couldn't see clearly. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see past like this like new love that I was feeling. I couldn't see past like, am I going to be homeless again? Because I had been homeless before.
Mm-hmm.
And um, so I decided to sell everything that I had
Yeah.
and that I was going to move to New York.
Yeah.
And the day that I got there, like, and I truly thought like, I will go there. I will be a writer. Like my dreams will come true.
Yeah.
And I believe that to be true so hard. And
Yeah.
I sold everything that I owned. Like I went with a suitcase full of my books
Yeah.
and a suitcase full of my clothes. And I brought one of Cooper's stuffed animals with me. And
Yeah.
I said goodbye to Cooper. And that was going to be my life. And the moment I got there, like I was sick to my stomach. Like
Mhm.
it was the worst mistake that I'd ever made in my entire life. And so I was there for 6 weeks and
Yeah.
then I moved back home. But it was definitely this feeling of like, I have to go and I have to go right now. And I think what I was running from was like the impending fear of like being evicted, not like I wasn't following love. Like there was no love there. There was like
Yeah.
infatuation, but there
Yes.
wasn't like we are in love. It was like your first like relationship with a woman or like a person is always just like this like it was like I was 16 again. Like I had never
Mhm.
like felt like true like intimacy before. And I left and I left Cooper. And I mean, I'm glad that I was only gone for 6 weeks, but
Mhm.
we had like my then husband and I, we were like working together on like, what is it going to look like if I spend like half my time in Ohio and half my time in New York? And then the day that we were going to finalize everything, I was actually, I was actually in Central Park with my girlfriend at the time. And have you ever seen the show Girls?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the episode Panic in Central Park
You have to
where
give me like something else.
Marnie sees her ex-boyfriend again and he's like high on drugs the whole time and they like
Yes.
go through Central Park together and she has that huge
Yes.
realization.
Yes.
So I had just watched that episode or maybe I hadn't watched that episode yet. I watched it maybe a year later and then I wrote about
Mhm.
the whole experience, but I had like
Mhm.
my own like Panic in Central Park was like the name of the episode.
Okay.
And I was just like I was walking to the park and I was like I have to go home right now. And I like looked to my girlfriend and I was like I'm leaving, like I have to go home. And so I went home and I have full custody of Cooper now, and
Yeah.
I think that it was like the best decision that I've ever made to leave and come back because it
Yes.
changed the way that I mothered.
Mm.
And I have like so much shame about the experience of like, I mean, even though I was only gone for 6 months, like my
Right.
intent was to leave.
Right.
Um, but I think being on the other side of like, I'm so glad that I had a moment of like, I have to burn it down and then burning it down and realizing like, what have you done? Like, it
Yes.
changed the way that I feel about everything now.
And you, if you hadn't given yourself permission to do that and gone and done it, you might have always romanticized and idealized that in your mind and like wondered about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I am so glad that I did that because now when I have those moments, like even in watching the show and even like in glamorizing those moments, like when I did, like I moved to the city and we was in Brooklyn and I had a coffee shop. And it was like, I mean, if you look at the old pictures of me, like my eyes were like black and blue. Like it was just like I was unwell. Like it was not good. And I'm glad that it happened.
I feel that. I'm glad
Yeah.
that, I mean, it's like, I'm not glad that you went through that, but also, yes, because it's part of being a person, is like the fuck ups and the mistakes are really important to make. They just are. They're
Mhm.
going to happen and it's a part of living a life. And I do think like being a mom can bring in that element of shame because it's like moms aren't supposed to X, Y, Z. But you're right. Like,
Right.
if it's like a mom and dad as the parents, it's like if dad has to go off and do this, people kind of, they might be like, that's not great, but it's not the same as if a mom goes and pursues what she thinks she wants. It's a totally different set of judgment comes with that.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot wrapped inside of it. And what was interesting is my friends at the time, my friends in the city, they were all super validating of my experience. And
Mm.
I wrote this in my first book, like I just wanted someone to slap me. Like, and not that my decision was necessarily wrong, but I'm just like, we're all just like trapped in this little world of like
Yeah.
wanting to protect this reality for this moment in time because we didn't want like mine or my partner's heart to break. And
Yeah.
I'm like, how protective of we of one heartbreak versus like the massive like earth shattering that was like happening inside of me that like I wasn't willing to see and that like people weren't willing to name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a time when I did burn it down.
Okay.
And I'm glad that I burned it down. What about you? What was the time that you thought about burning it down or you did?
You know what? I thought about this a lot before we sat down to do this. And I even called my sister Kayla, who is like, she is my burn it down support. system.
Mhm.
Because here's the thing I'll say, if you ever, like, if anyone listening ever has this sensation, if you can find at least one person that you can
Yeah.
talk to when this feeling comes up, who is not going to be triggered by it, right? Like if I am bringing this conversation to certain other people in my life, they get upset or they're like freaked out because they don't understand that this is just my process. So if you can
Mhm.
find one person who doesn't like make it kind of about them or like goes into like, how do we fix this mode? Highly
Right.
recommend. Like we all need one person we can say anything to who's not going to get freaked out by us. It's so
Absolutely.
validating. I called Kayla and I was like, hey, can you think of like a specific time that I called you and was like, I'm going to burn my life down? And she was like, it's more of like an overarching theme that comes up at different times in your life. And I was like, no, you're so right. So for me, it's less about like a specific moment and more of like this feeling that comes up anytime there's major change in my life and
Mm.
anytime things are going really well. I
Mhm.
get so uncomfortable. And like starting when I was a teenager, the first time I actually wanted to burn something down was when I was 16. I wanted to burn down the relationship I was in. And for various reasons, I didn't feel like I could or that I should. So I stayed. And that staying meant that I was creating secretive chaos. So I was doing all kinds of things in secret. So on the surface, good girl, straight A student, good girlfriend, good daughter. Like I didn't party in high school, like whatever. I really liked being perceived that way. Underneath, like I was out there. I was fucking and like just like exploring all the things that I wanted to explore as a teenager.
Yeah.
And so that initiated this pattern in my life of like secretive chaos. And then I got to college and then I was like, I'm not going to be secretive about my chaos. I'm just going to be fully chaotic. And I started really combining like all romantic and sexual relationships had to have an element of chaos and drama for me
Oh,
to
Yeah.
like be in them. Like I like lived for it. I like thrived off of it. I did not want healthy romance. Like I just was like, no, thanks. This seems boring.
Mhm.
So I was in all of these like dynamics that were just like problematic, almost all of them in their own ways. And that became my comfort zone. I got comfortable with toxicity and chaos and drama, especially in my sexual and romantic and intimate relationships with like men. Um, and so even how Chris and I started was it was secretive because we were actually just friends, like for the first year and a half of college, just friends. One night we became more than friends. And like my whole world was like, wait, what? So we kept it a secret because we didn't want to disrupt the friend group. I had like a whole sexual moral, like not moral code. It wasn't moral at all. I had my own sexual code that I lived by, which was like, don't fuck the friend group. So like, just like fuck outside the friend group, don't fuck people that are friends with each other. Like, cause I was still trying to
Yeah.
protect my reputation. I was like, oh, I can be like this in secret, but not, people can't know. Whatever. So ridiculous.
Yeah.
Internalized all the isms. Um, so yeah, so even our relationship started as a secret and like there was a lot of chaos and drama. And like we broke up multiple times in college and even after college. And when we got back together, like for real as adults, like we gave it the adult try, things started getting healthier. And what happened was, as we got healthier, I started getting more uneasy. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know what to do in a healthy, I knew that I wanted that. But like as I started healing and going to therapy and like growing and working on myself, as Chris was doing that, and as we were doing that in the relationship, there not being chaos made me really, really antsy. Like I kept waiting, like, okay, well, I need to like manufacture chaos because if I don't, something bad is going to happen. It's going to be out of my control. Like at least if I burn it down, it's by my own hand and I'm running the
That's it.
show.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
if something happens to me, I won't be able to handle it. Like I need to be the master of the chaos. And so there's like so many moments in our life together where when things are going really well, I start getting nervous.
Mhm.
And I'll be like, oh my God, Kayla. And like, she makes fun of me. I'm like, oh my God. Like, should I just like move to Costa Rica and like live in the jungle? And it's like, first of all, that's the last thing Costa Rica needs is like one more white woman, like trying to be like, I live in the jungle in Costa
Oh,
Rica.
right. Yeah, exactly.
But like, that is like my go-to scenarios. Like I should just run away and like live on a commune. And like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like this is, and she's always like, things are just going too well, huh? Like things are just going too well for you. Stuff is just too good and you don't know, you're so uncomfortable with it. So that's like where I'm working on getting comfortable, because my comfort zone, unfortunately, it is what it is a level of chaos.
Yeah.
So I get freaked out when things are going well. I'm like, something bad is going to happen. But if I make it happen, I'm in control at least.
Yeah, that level of control, that feeling of safety. Like, I'm the one who's going to destroy this. I'm the one, if someone's going to bring it down, I'm going to bring it down first. Yeah.
And like, people that are like, oh, I'm friendly with my exes. And like, actually, like, we're friends. Like, I went to their wedding, or like, I'm invited to the cookouts. I'm like, I can't even really fathom how that works, because I like burn every bridge. Like, I'm like, if I'm gonna end this relationship, I am going to implode this thing. I have like one ex situation that like we're fine, but I can't imagine being like kicking it with the other ones and like hanging out. Like, trust me, they don't want to fucking see me. Like we don't want to see each other.
No, I feel the exact same way. Do you think that the people who feel that tendency towards avoidance, do you think for all of them it's control? It's that like protective mechanism?
It could be. I think there's an element, right? Like, not to bring in trauma, but trauma impacts almost all of us. Like, depending on what happened in your childhood, depending on how your caregivers raised you, determines kind of how we connect with people. And so people swing, like people that are avoidant tend to swing towards like running away from, moving away from, wanting to like cut things off as a way to protect themselves and like manufacture control that's not real.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you have Kayla.
Me too. And like, one of the things that Chris and I have worked on is like, I would be like, I'm all in the relationship, but it was like, okay, like think if you have like both feet in, and like my pinky toe would be like kind of sticking out. So like I would think all my toes are in, but like my one pinky, it would be like a rogue pinky toe, like sticking out the side, just to have an exit plan. Not because I want to leave him or be with other people. It's not about that. Like, I'm obsessed with him. I love him. Wonderful partner. This would be what I would be doing with anybody. Like, truly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a protective mechanism. It's like, okay, so if shit goes south, I have an exit plan to protect my heart, because if I go all in and something happens, I will be heartbroken, obliterated. What if I never recover from that amount of pain? And so I have worked consistently, especially in the last year and a half, to be like, how can I be all in and not defensive to protect myself? Because that's not fair to him or me.
Yeah. No, I totally relate to like the pinky. When Sarah and I first started dating 3 years ago, I would be like, I mean, I felt the exact same way. Like, I'm just going to blow this up. Like, if someone's going to blow it up, I'm going to blow it up.
Like, it's too good. It's so scary how healthy and good it is that you're like, this can't be right.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it felt. So like when I would try to like, I'm going to stay. Like, I worked so hard. I was in so much therapy to be like, I'm going to stay because I want to stay. And like, that's what we want to do. So I would touch her with one finger after we would like get in a fight or something. And like I would be like on the inside, I'd be like, well, we're just going to leave. And then I would just touch her with one finger. So like, I'm like trying with like this one finger, like so hard. Like all of me is like in this finger. Well, like 98% of me is in this like one finger touching you trying.
That's both poetic and also really smart. Like, when I've worked with couples, one of the things that can be super helpful is, post an argument, is reconnecting through touch, if that feels accessible and safe for people, because it's very grounding. It's a way to co-regulate your nervous systems. It's like reconnect through touch. And some people will be like, oh, we can hug after. And some people, when they fight, they're like, the last thing I want to do is like hug you and be hugged by you. But like, oh, a pinky, a one finger touch, you can do that. So that's like poetic and actually very practical. I love that. Did she know that that's what you were doing?
Yeah, I told her.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. She knew.
Love it.
She knew.
It's a bid for connection when when the wounded parts of you want to do is run away. So it's like you're leaning into the adult grown version of you that wants to stay, while the scared younger part of you that's like wounded wants to run and hide because it feels safer.
Yeah. It's all in the finger.
It's all in the finger.
Well, that kind of leads us beautifully into questions that people asked us.
Yeah.
Because I want to be conscious of our time. Typically this podcast will be anywhere between like 45 minutes to an hour, with maybe occasional shorter episodes in between that.
But someone asked on Instagram, how do you know if it's avoidance or intuitive knowing?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Do you want
What
me
do
to
you
go
think?
for it first? Okay.
Yeah, you go for it first.
Wait, say it one more time.
How do you know if it's avoidance or intuitive knowing?
Okay. For me and for a lot of people that I support, intuitive knowing is like just a firm, calm voice.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes directive, sometimes very like yes, no, this or that. Very like there's not emotion really attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Avoidance. How do you know something's avoidant? When you have a whole narrative and story attached to it. If you have a whole scenario that you're playing out in your head and there's all this emotional energy behind it and you are very reactive to it, you're probably swinging into some like avoidance stuff right there.
Yeah, I agree. I like to think of it, and someone who asked this, they're an entrepreneur. And a lot of people ask questions specifically like when I start a new offer, I immediately like I get excited about it for like 2 days and then I want to burn it down.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for me, I know that it's avoidance when I feel like a heightened sense of urgency, like very much so like the podcast cover art. Like I was like, I need it. Like I need it. Like, and I want control over it, which is why I didn't tell you like immediately
Yes.
because I was like, I need this to be done and I need it for me like absolutely right now. And it
Right.
was like that frenetic energy.
Yes. Frenetic, chaotic energy. And you
Mm-hmm.
kept it a secret. That's like,
I did.
that's kind of how we know. Like if something's an intuitive hit and knowing, there's not a lot of chaos around it. You know, it's usually a quiet, it's not a noisy knowing. It's like a quiet, firm knowing, even if it's like, not an ideal, like something's telling you like, oh, you have to leave this situation or you have to leave your marriage or you need to do this in your business. Even if you're like, well, that's really inconvenient or going to be really hard, the energy behind it is not like a sense of urgency and freak out. And I love that you brought up business because this stuff shows up everywhere. Like we play it out in our personal relationships, but we also play it out in like our work and our friendships and our family. And like if you start a new hobby and you're always abandoning it, like avoid it as soon as things get like too much. You're like, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that's like when entrepreneurs create. I mean, there's so many different scenarios with like a lot of people ask that, like, I create something and then I want to burn it down. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, if we're looking at it through the lens of the visionary, which is one of the 4 leadership designs that my wife and I created.
Yeah.
There are 4 different business archetypes, and the visionary works in these like high highs and low lows, and they love validation. They always have ideas, and so we often see that in the visionary kind of entrepreneur who has an idea and they go all in right away, and then there's almost like they're too close to what they really want,
Yeah.
and so burn it down. They're too close to that intimacy. They're too close to like I
feel
like,
called out. I'm like, oh God, that's me. Fuck.
Yeah, well, because it's on ideas that they typically love. Like when I have a client who shuts something down, shutting something down because it's not right is different than like beautifully creating something and then being like, I'm not doing that anymore. And then like, frenetically shutting it down.
Yes.
Or like avoiding it or saying like, I'm not going to do that anymore. There's a different energy and like, this doesn't make sense for me versus like, I'm too close to what I actually want. I was that way in the beginning of my business constantly. Like I used to have this vision of myself where, those jewelry boxes with a little ballerina inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I used to have this vision of me where I was dancing with myself and we were going in a circle, but we only could get halfway through the circle before we would like turn back around. And it's like, I could never make a complete circle because I was always too close to what I wanted. So like I would have this like massive success in my business. And then I would completely burn bridges and burn it down. And then I would go to another heightened period and then I would burn it down again. And it's only in the last like 4 or 5 years where things have truly felt like they're in like I can listen to this like this person inside of me that like wants an exit strategy like you were talking about, but that can find the exit if needed, but that doesn't need it to move forward.
Yes. Like you couldn't tolerate things going well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big piece of this is like, it is not about silencing this part of yourself. Like whenever I see people who are like, your inner like critic, tell your inner critic to shut the fuck up. I'm like, good luck with that. Like
Right.
usually when people do that, it gets louder. It might shut up for a minute, but then it comes back with like a fucking vengeance because you are telling it to go fuck itself versus going, how do I honor that this part of me exists? I'm not going to banish it. I'm not going to shove it down, but I'm also not going to let it run the show. So I'm going to give it space to like express. Like I have adult temper tantrums all the time privately. Like I just like lose my shit. And then I'm able to go like, okay, now the adult version of me is back online. And like, do I actually want to like get in my car and like drive to the ends of the earth? Like, no, that's not what I actually want. I was actually just scared because of XYZ. And it's just learning like, how do I tolerate and expand my capacity to tolerate the discomfort of like good things happening to me? And also knowing that bad stuff out of my control could 100% happen. And I'm allowed to be scared of that, but not so scared that I like blow up my own life to be like, see, I orchestrated the chaos.
Oh, that feels like such a beautiful note to like walk away with. Like if someone
Yeah.
was going to walk away with anything from this podcast, it's like that we can feel that and know that scary things are going to happen and
Mm-hmm.
also good things are going to happen too. And like, how can we hold room for like the full scale of humanity and really honor that and honor that inner critic as well?
Yeah, like all of it gets to exist. And I don't know who pushed the narrative that like life is supposed to just be like good and only good things happen. So like everyone can't believe it when bad shit goes down, but it is a part of living. Like it's a painful truth. It's the beautiful part of living and brutal as well.
Mm,
Yeah.
yes, beautiful and brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. That was the cheesiest thing I've said in a while.
I liked it though.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I feel like this is a beautiful place to come to an end of our
Yes.
very first episode,
Yeah.
which I think has been really lovely. I love that I get to do this with you.
Me too. This is so nice. And thank you to everyone listening. If you know someone who you think would love this conversation, like send them this way,
Please do.
please.
Please do. All right, everybody. Well, we hope you have a beautiful day and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.